Kyle Blakely with Mark Waller, and this is another episode of We Have Issues. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. The first one is the ongoing saga of the Colorado Republican Party. And Mark, we have a special guest starting out with us today, don't we?
Gosh, I'll tell you what, talking about we have issues, that cannot be epitomized better than with the state. We don't know whether we should call you Mr. Chair, Insurgent Chair, guy who's taken over in a coup. How do we refer to you, Eli?
Chairman's fine. I was elected by the State Central Committee. I don't think there's a whole lot of doubt about that. So you can call me Chairman. You can call me Eli. Anything works. We both go Chairman, by the way. So you can call me by my middle name.
Oh, I tell you what. Never name your kid one thing and call them by their middle name is pure torture. I know you and I've had this conversation numerous times in the past, both being people that are called by their middle names. Kyle, hopefully that didn't happen to you.
No, it didn't. Although I don't mind my middle name, they just didn't do it.
Well, here's the way it works. So I'm actually Donald Mark. I've been Mark since I dropped into the catcher's mitt. I know Eli, is it James? Robert Eli. And he's been called Eli his whole life. His wife, Anna Camille, goes by Cammy, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Our parents did that to us just to torture us. That's why that was done. I'm going to do a whole what's pissing Mark off on that someday, Kyle.
Well, and Mark, Cammy and I did the same thing, and we named our son his middle name. So we're slow learners.
Oh my gosh. Actually, my kids, Truman and Camille, they both get their own names. So
what you needed was to not give them a middle name at all to end it. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, make sure you can't mess with that. But let me tell you, that's going to be we're going to do a whole show on that's pissing Mark off one of these days. You know, Doug Bruce actually said when I was running against him for the state legislature, I was obviously going by an alias because I went by Mark and my name appeared as Mark on the ballot. It's been Mark my whole life, but you know. Anyway, so all right, we digress. Talking about how people are named, but Eli, I know I kind of made a joke with you a little bit about what do we call you, but there's actually with purpose. There's a whole lot of issue going on right now. You have one side of the Republican Party has gotten together, tossed Dave Williams out. That seems like that was done legitimately. However, Dave Williams is now saying, nope, that was an illegal meeting. I'm not leaving. What gives?
Well, I mean, obviously the now deposed former chair and his fellow officers are upset that they were kicked out. But, it was a very legitimate meeting. I mean, we had not one, not two, not three, not four. We had 5 attorneys at that meeting who were helping oversee it, make the motions, stuff like that.
For the record, attorneys make nothing legitimate. Okay, just understand that. That's how our listeners approach this, So no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I see. Well, anyway, it was you have now effectively some squatters at the party office. We're in the process of doing the final eviction, but they were not doing the job of running the party. They were attacking our very own candidates. I see you're at the State House right now. With the special session. I mean, just about a week and a half ago, they went after Cleve Simpson, who's running for state senate, and they sent some vile emails into his district. And it was almost like if the Democrats were controlling the apparatus of the Republican Party, they couldn't have done a better job attacking our own candidates. So I was asked to come in. I've said I'll basically do it on an interim basis until the next natural election, which would be early in the spring. And we're just working on getting the trains running on schedule, getting everything back on track.
So, Eli, is this the meeting then that originally there was an injunction to pause the meeting, and then the judge said no, they can go forward with it? So is that the meeting that happened? Okay.
Yeah. The former chairman and his attorney lied to the court. That's indisputable. They presented false evidence to the court. For instance, they hadn't actually served the people they said they served. I mean, they flat out lied. I believe the attorney that filed that is facing an ethics complaint now. I would not want to be him. And so, yeah, they lied to the court. They got a temporary restraining order, despite the fact that we were told by our attorneys this is an improper order. It was improperly issued. We honored it because we follow the law. We then held a meeting 4 weeks later, took care of business. That's all water under the bridge now.
And so their claim is that this is some sort of, that the meeting you held and what, there were like 150 state central committee delegates that showed up?
182.
182. So you have 182 state central committee delegates that show up to this meeting. But the former chair now, Dave, is claiming that somehow that meeting was illegal. Like, what's that based on?
Well, you and I both known the former chairman for over a decade, and he's a man of gimmicks, and he paid a parliamentarian to say that this was done incorrectly. Again, we didn't rely on parliamentarians; we relied on attorneys. They held a meeting under a bridge. I mean, it's almost just sad and pathetic. They had the former vice chair in Bayfield, Colorado, held a meeting where 3 of his supporters attended. They were trying to hide. They're trying to hide the meeting so that people couldn't actually come. And they said, well, that constitutes a legal meeting for removal of the chair, even though we wouldn't tell you where it was going to be, when it was going to be. And, we told everybody, you cannot show up at this meeting. So it was just this ginormous gimmick. And what happened, Mark, is the chairs of all the 64 counties, nearly all of them supported removal. I mean, it's just gone way too far. And, this election is very important. Again, I think it's great you're sitting up there at the State House because there's so much going on inside the state of Colorado. And then federally, we've got 2 congressional races that are very important. And the reality was the former leadership wasn't doing anything. So the members of the party got together, said, we're going to take care of business. We're going to remove them. We're going to put some adults in charge. And again, that's how we got here.
Okay, so what does
what does
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so what does the eviction process look like?
Well, it's a little bit complicated. There will be some legal aspects to this. Some of it will probably wind up with the RNC. I mean, there's about 5 different bank accounts we have to get access to. We have to get access to the state's tracer account so we can actually report as we get contributions back into the party. We can report those. The same with the Federal Election Commission logins. So it's a squatter type situation, but it's a little more complicated than that because you can't just evict them from a building. You got to get the website back and the emails and, the bank accounts and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, but how do you physically, you show up at the party headquarters and walk in, I assume Dave gives you the finger and says, get out of here, you're trespassing. Do you have law enforcement show up with you? Do you have, and are they even going to be willing to get involved in, all of this mess? I mean, what does that physically look like?
Well, let's start with the fact that they haven't been occupying the office to begin with. I mean, they have the party operations have been, for all intents and purposes, non-existent, with the exception of sending emails into candidates' districts that were not approved and not appreciated. So there's no one to be upset when you walk into the office. That being said, we are a party of law. We're a country of laws, and we're going to honor the laws and go through the right process. So it will involve some courts. I would not be surprised at some point if it involves the sheriff executing a court order. So despite the fact that they were kicked out, we're going to go through the right process. We're also not waiting. Yesterday, we opened up officially an auxiliary office here in Colorado Springs that will be manning phones. We're in the process of now bringing collateral into the state for campaigns. There was none of that had happened. I spent this morning working on getting collateral in because we have a lot of people who want yard signs and things like that they're willing to pay for them, but no one had done any of the basic work. So we're already taking over operations. We're doing the job. It'll take us 2 to 4 weeks probably to finish the evictions, but we're going to go through the process and do that the right way. So in all fairness, we would welcome the former leadership to admit that they got deposed because they weren't doing their job and hand over the keys. I don't expect that to happen. So that's the caveat. If they do the right thing, it all ends. We have the bank account. We start supporting the candidates. They're not going to do the right thing.
Sure. And we understand that obviously kind of what's going on here. We understand that this, they're kind of running their operation, calling this an illegal meeting, and they're saying that they have some sort of meeting scheduled for next week. I think it is now. How do you determine the legitimacy or validity of that meeting?
Well, again, this is a process of rules and laws. We have bylaws, and we followed our bylaws to hold a central committee meeting to remove the officers. At that same meeting, the issue of a meeting that the former chairman had called came up. There's a couple issues with that. He did not properly call that meeting. There were issues inside our organization. We have an attorney who issued an opinion on that said it was not properly called because they tried to do a gimmick. Again, they tried to manipulate timelines and official timelines and stuff by holding a meeting at an undisclosed location in a remote part of Colorado, which again, there's video of this. It was just the most pathetic, sad thing I've seen is Hope Scheffelman, the former vice chair, under a bridge hiding from people saying, I mean, they're like, we're all about transparency. I'm like, you held a meeting
people under a bridge.
Under a bridge. And they had 3 supporters of the former leadership there.
They're just doing voter outreach there. It's just voter outreach. Eli, come on.
Well, Mark, so to show you how sort of pathetic this was, they mustered 3 of their people to show up at that. They had 12 at the meeting to remove them and of their supporters. So we literally had 4 times as many of their supporters at this meeting than they had at their meeting. The problem was what they did was actually illegal. And so the meeting was not properly called according to the rules of the organization. So the organization gathered and said, okay, we're not going to honor that. We're going to cancel that meeting. So that meeting is canceled. Now, I'm not going to do to them what they did to us and try to violate their First Amendment rights. They have the right to go meet there and talk about issues. They can talk about what a terrible human being I am because I'm supporting our candidates. I know it's weird that the Republican Party would support its candidates. They're more than welcome to gather there. I don't think they're going to get a lot of people. This was scheduled over Labor Day weekend specifically to suppress turnout. So I expect that they will suppress the turnout. I'm actually working on getting a whole bunch of door hangers and seeing if we can get them by then, and we'll pass them out and say, if you guys want to do something political, go walk a precinct and hang door hangers out.
So how many total delegates are there in the Central Committee?
It's right around 400 if you count all the positions. It sort of varies because, for instance, Mineral County in theory has 3 votes. They actually only have a chairman. They don't have a vice chair, secretary. There's always people resigning and stuff like that. So it's right around 400. Typically for a meeting like this, you're going to get a bit less than half. That's about what we had. Yeah, that's actually, they're trying to say, well, you didn't have very many people there. Well, we actually did.
You had more than 3.
We did. We had, as I said, we had 4 times as many supporters of theirs at our meeting as they did on theirs. And look, we did. We had volunteers helping us ID across the whole Central Committee. The former leadership team had about a 30% support and about a 70% oppose. So it wasn't surprising that the results are a little skewed because some of their people were angry and didn't show up. But, if you had every single person there, which is impossible, a few years ago, this same crew changed the rules of proxies and made it virtually impossible for outerlying counties to get their delegate votes in. We have, our chairman in Prowers County and these sort of outerlying counties, they're farmers. They work on the weekend. They don't take the weekends off. And so it's virtually impossible for them to come in and credential in. So we had a lot of people that wanted to be here. We probably had about another 80 to 100 supporters that had said, hey, I want to come and help, but we couldn't, we had people in the Western Slope, 6-hour drive away. They literally could not find anybody who could break away for 2 days to come cast their vote. So that's again, we had typical turnout.
Well, thanks for coming on and explaining the process and where we are. Hopefully this all gets resolved so Republicans can have an opportunity to actually pick up some seats in the state house and the state Senate. That's something we need desperately. Best of luck getting this done.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Happy to come on anytime. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, we're going to have you back when
thanks,
we want to be there when the eviction happens. So just let us know and we'll show up with the camera.
Take a number and stand in line. I can't tell you how many people have said that, but it probably won't be highly publicized.
All right. Thanks, Eli.
Right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Eli. Bye-bye.
Wow, what a cluster.
I'm
Geez.
still
And by the way,
amazed at the whole
do
thing.
you realize your C is backwards? Are you under duress right now? Are you, do we have some sort of issue going on? Do we need to send help? Just, blink twice if, you're being held
It's
captive.
showing up. It's showing up the right way for me.
Yeah, it looks backwards for me. It looks like
Uh,
a Soviet sea, obviously communist. That's where you are, communist Russia today. Well, listen, the other big issue we got going on. I'm here at the state capitol right now, enjoying. And I use that term loosely, enjoying the special session called by the governor to try to fix this property tax issue. So I figured he put the C back up. We were okay with that. We've got.
I'm good if it's backwards.
I'm going
Not a
to
problem.
admit Senator Byron Pelton in. He's going to tell us about what's happening with this special session.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because obviously you two are going to be well aware of what's going on, but for a lot of us, we're in the dark. So this should be.
Absolutely. And there he is. And by the way, let me do an introduction here. Senator Pelton was previously a Logan County commissioner. He was one of the 3 best Logan County commissioners during his time on the Logan County Commission. And he and I actually, kind of share a special and particular bond. When we were both freshman county commissioners, I from El Paso County, he from Logan County, the Colorado Counties Incorporated has this little awards banquet. They made me the freshman county commissioner of the year, and Senator Pelton, the co-freshman county commissioner of the year.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. And it was because I felt sorry for Mark, and because I was in the Navy, the best military ever, and he was in the Air Force. We know how to fly, they don't. So that's how that works. Because Top Gun's Navy movie, it's not an Air Force movie. I just want to remind him of that. So
Commander-in-Chief trophies, let's talk that. Let's talk about who's won more Commander-in-Chief trophies.
not going there. No, not going to go.
Yeah, exactly. This is just like, this is how Senator Pelton does it. Get him on the ropes, you just move away, change the subject.
Let's talk Heisman Trophy winners, okay? Roger Staubach.
It's fair enough.
Roger Staubach. Yep.
Yeah, like what was that? Like 1942 or something? I don't
want to go there either.
Jeez, golly, our parents weren't born when he won the Heisman Trophy. That's how long ago that was.
So, Senator, I'm Kyle. It's nice to meet you. So for those of us who aren't in Denver and have just seen some headlines and speculation on what's been happening since the special session started yesterday, what seems to be out there in the compromise, and is it going to be done by the end of the day tomorrow, a 3-day session?
I'm not sure if it's going to be done. We've already been pushed back another day, so just until Thursday, because originally it was only supposed to be 3 days. Now it's going to be down to 4 days, but there's lots of discussions.
And real quick, that's a procedural issue, right? Like it has to go into Thursday now because the House didn't do all they should have done yesterday in order to get this thing over to the Senate in order to be done in 3 days. So now they're looking at a minimum of 4 days.
And there's just a lot of discussions around assessment rates and how low we're going to go with the assessment rates, because we need to be very careful on the assessment rates on how we do it. Well, because of the smaller counties that we are doing.
Well, Senator, for our listeners here, explain to them why we're doing the special session in the first place. Okay. What this is all about, right? We haven't had that discussion yet.
So what this is all about from the very beginning is that there are 2 ballot initiatives on the ballot that would be very detrimental to local governments and providing services.
And so we talked about those 108 and 50.
108 and 50, that is correct. And I'm not going to go into where I feel on those because,
sure,
Mark Waller's very, very aware of the fact where I'm at on those. But the deal is if we can lower the property tax assessment rate enough that there could be some discussions about taking off the ballot initiatives. And there's lots of discussions around this discussion bill that we're having discussions with, negotiations and that sort of thing. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to have meaningful tax relief right away, which would because if 108 and 50 passed, you have to wait a whole 2 years before you get tax relief. What we're trying to do is create tax relief right now. And so, and it's actually not a complete cut. We're just decreasing the increase that's going to happen to the citizens all over Colorado because of the Gallagher Amendment was repealed. So the Gallagher Amendment kept property taxes very low for residential owners. And we're trying to do this in a meaningful way where we can reduce the residential rate and the commercial rate, which also affects farmers and ranchers. And we got to make sure that when we do that, we do it in a meaningful way where we're not hurting local governments to provide services.
So let me say it like this and see if I have this correctly. I mean, we've kind of ended up in a perfect storm here. The real issue kind of started, I mean, obviously Gallagher's had a part of this, Tabor's had a part of this, over the years, setting us up. But really where we got into a bind was a few years ago, the real estate market just skyrocketed in the state of Colorado, and the values of homes just went up, which means that when the local governments assessed those homes, looked at them and said, this is the value of your home, that caused property taxes to skyrocket, right?
Correct.
Okay, and when they skyrocketed, finally a couple of years ago, all that data gets produced, and then you have people's taxes. Everybody's noticed this, their taxes have gone up, 30, 40, 50%, some cases even like 100% because the value of their property has gone up that much, right?
Correct.
And so then the state legislature in the last regular legislative session tried to fix this with a bill.
233. Yes, 233.
Yep. In the last legislative session, you guys tried to fix that, did a great job, came to a compromise, Republicans, Democrats agreeing, but then these ballot initiatives kept getting pushed further anyway.
That is correct, yes.
Ballot initiatives reduce all of this, but the problem is it comes at the expense of local governments.
Local governments and schools. So
okay.
Yeah, because the one thing that
so explain how that happens.
So the school districts, so they are reliant on property taxes as well. And what property taxes they don't bring in, then they are supposed to be backfilled by the state of Colorado because of Amendment 23. And we're supposed to prioritize that right off the bat, which the legislature years ago came up with a BS factor, which actually penalized the schools and didn't give them enough money. So the fact that we got rid of the BS factor this last legislative session, we are trying to do everything we possibly can to make sure that we don't go back to a BS factor and make sure that schools are fully funded.
And what does BS stand for? Because it's not bullshit.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, in this circumstance. I mean, it might be bullshit, but it's not what it stands for in this circumstance.
Oh, well, that's what I always thought it was, but it's, help me out, Mark. What does it stand for?
Budget stabilization.
Yes.
Budget stabilization. There
Kyle jumping in there. That's a little golf clap, Kyle.
I was going to say budget something.
I work with some school districts, so I'm familiar with it.
It's funny
because
stabilization factor. Right. My wife is a school teacher as well, and my brother-in-law is a superintendent, so I get it from both sides. So.
Nice.
But yeah, that's and so in 233, what we did, because I was part of some of those negotiations, is that we decoupled the schools, so we didn't hurt the schools, and so we could keep the school districts fully funded. Because, like you said, when the real estate market went up, a lot of the Front Range counties, like El Paso County and like Douglas County and those bigger counties, saw a lot more increase, but the rural areas saw an increase, but it wasn't as much. So we're trying to make sure that all the schools will be kind of held harmless of this, and putting in caps and that sort of thing is what we do, or that we're trying to do with this new discussion bill, is to make sure that local governments and school districts aren't increasing faster than people can pay their taxes. And that's what we came up with. That's what's going on. My father lives in Strasburg there in Arapahoe County, and his property taxes went up, I think is 53%, which is like $8,500 a year that he has to pay. And it's very expensive. And dad is on a fixed income, and he's 70 some years old. And that's tough for people on fixed incomes to come up with that extra money. So these are the things that I'm talking about, is like, these are the people that we're trying to help and still be able to, as well as I do with county and local governments, still trying to make it to where they can still provide services.
So let's say 108, you don't come to an agreement here, or you do come to an agreement and 108 and 50 still end up on the ballot. Like, how much is 108 and 50 actually going to cost government if they pass?
I think it's like $2.5 billion is what I understand.
Is that total, or is that to the state?
Per year. So that's what I understand. And the trouble with 108 and 50, if it passes, because if it passes, it gets rid of 233 altogether. And when it gets rid of 233, we're going to see a spike in increase, because then everything goes back to 7.1%. So we'll see a huge increase in 1 year, and then we'll see a huge decrease down the following year after that. So, that's what makes it very difficult for local governments to budget to, because, they're going to see this huge increase, and then they're going to see this huge decrease. And so it's going to be very difficult for local governments to budget to that. So what we're trying to come up with is where it's everything stable, smooth, where local governments have some sort of idea on how they're going to budget. Because, Mark Waller and I both know how local governments work. Is like, your budgets are always in the rears when you're doing this, because you're working off the money that you're getting from the year before. So
what does the compromise look like? And I don't even know that there is a compromise. I might be using the wrong word here, but what is what's currently going through the legislature now in this special session? What does that bill look like?
Well, I think what it looks like, I haven't been a part of a lot of the negotiations. I've just, the little bit that I've seen is that we're going from, in 233, we went from 6.5. So we're going to go on residential, and we're going to go to 6.3. There's going to be caps that local governments cannot grow larger than 5.5%. And I think that school districts is at 6%. So, and that's in a 2-year time frame. So they can actually grow by 12% if they did, and that sort of thing. There's also with commercial property that it's going to go from, I think, 27.5% down to 25%, and that includes agriculture. The one that was a big sticking point for me that kind of worries me is the state assessed tax. I represent 7 counties in the northeast corner. 3 of those counties, one of them is quite large. I represent Weld County, the majority of Weld County, where in agriculture and oil and gas is produced. But Morgan and Logan, those are medium-sized counties. And then the smaller counties where state assessed is 40% of their budgets. Those are the ones that really worry me when we start lowering state assessed tax. And
when you say state assessed tax, you're talking about taxes on oil and gas and stuff like that.
Pipelines, because we got a lot of pipelines running through eastern Colorado, railroads, wind towers. There's all kinds of things that are state assessed that even a lot of the state land board land that's in there, that sometimes we get some stuff off of them if they have certain things on them. So there's a lot of things that the counties get money for in their budgets. And those smaller counties like Yuma County, I'll point out, I think it's 40% of their budget is state assessed tax. I'll point out that I think Sedgwick County is like closer to 46%. I think Washington County is up there as well. Phillips County. These are all smaller counties that aren't seeing these huge growth in property taxes. They've seen growth because the land values out there are worth more, but it's not the growth that we saw so quickly on the Front Range. It's a growth over time. So I'll give a perfect example. In Logan County, in the last 20 years, we've seen property taxes have never gone down. So, but I will tell you that it's also in 3% increments, 4%. I think one year it was 8%. Last year, I think it was closer to 11 or 12%. It goes up, but it goes up in smaller increments, not like it did on the Front Range. So, and these farmers are out there getting $3 a bushel for their corn, or $3.50 a bushel for corn every year. So they're seeing an increase in taxes, but they're not seeing an increase in revenue because the commodity prices aren't that high. So that's why I think the good compromise bill is to cut the taxes, cut the increase, or decrease the increase, and try to help out our agriculture and residential areas in rural Colorado. That's what I'm looking at it as a prospective solution. So
in those two bills, or the two ballot issues, the state government would backfill school districts and special districts, but not counties. Does that piece of it still stay the same?
no, because once 233 it'll be taken out. It's gone. And the backfill is actually gone too. The backfill will be gone in 2025 because there's no backfill. I mean, there is backfill. They talk about backfill in 108, but it repeals. It's out. It's done by 2025. So there's no backfill in 108. So
well, and it's think about it this way, Kyle. It's kind of interesting. It's a piece of legislation passes. If the legislature passes another piece of legislation that supersedes the previous one, and in this circumstance, then we have a ballot initiative. 108 is statutory. So let's say the legislature passes a bill now, today, or by Thursday, when they have to pass a bill, but 108 does not come off of the books, right? The proponents of that keep moving forward. They don't pull it off the ballot, and then it passes. So right now, 233 is the law of the land. The legislature passes a bill on Thursday, that becomes the law of the land. But if 108 then passes, that becomes the law of the land. Have that right, Senator?
Yep, that is correct.
So it seems to me, if 108 passes, somehow that happens. This compromise doesn't work. 108 passes, which I think is a real possibility here. Then the legislature could, in the subsequent session, pass yet another bill to try to circumvent some of the bad parts of 108, which I think is a real possibility.
I mean, I don't agree with that, because if the people speak, then we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, for real. But I'm also not in the majority, so I could be voting no and that sort of thing. So the majority might do that, but for the most part, if the people speak and they vote yes on something, it's overwhelmingly like an HH. We should not give them back HH, that type of thing. But these are the things that we deal with up here. I mean, it's being from the local government perspective. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that we should be circumventing the rule of the role of the people. But if we get called back here to lower property taxes, I certainly want to look at that very carefully, and probably will agree with it to vote yes on cutting property taxes. But it's not really up to us if the people who brought 108 and 50 want to take it off the ballot. It's completely up to them. We're not doing that. We're just saying we're going to lower property taxes, and if you guys want to do this, then it's up to you. So, but we shouldn't be circumventing the rule of people either. So,
well, and to be clear there, so the 108 statutory, that's something correct. The legislature has some impact over, but 50 is actually constitutional, that would take a much higher bar for the legislature to change if they even wanted to do that. So it seems to me. The likelihood would be more that, hey, they come back to try to fix maybe some of the issues with 108, like this whole problem with your taxes are going to skyrocket for a year and then come way down. That's a fix action the legislature can try to engage in some way to fix that in the subsequent legislative session. But nothing's going to happen with 50 because that's constitutional.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Well, so what's happening today, tomorrow, and Thursday? How do we get through the process? What still has to happen?
Well, the bill started in the House yesterday. It had its first reading in a committee meeting. You made it out of committee. Now it's on. Now they're having second readings today on the floor of the House. Takes 3 readings to pass a bill. That's why it takes 3 days, and you have to do it in a 3-day period. And since I didn't get the second readings yesterday, that's why we're now here for a subsequent bit. So, but it's in the House. They are still working to try to find a way forward and trying to make sure that they're going to make stuff. They're trying to make it happen over there. So the House right now is doing their thing. I'm in the Senate, and we just adjourned at 10:30 to be to re-adjourn tomorrow. And if it comes back over, if they pass it out of thirds tomorrow, it'll be in our first reading tomorrow. So that's how that's going to work.
So right now you're in a pretty big hurry up and wait circumstance, right? You're waiting for the House to get their work done before the Senate can do their work.
That is correct. It's like being in the military all over again, Mark. You know how this works.
That's right. No, in the Air Force, we actually did stuff, so I don't understand that as well as you do, being in the Navy. No, I'm kidding. So you guys were, kind of waiting for it to come over, but everything I'm hearing, I'm under the dome right now. I'm in the building just like you are. I think there are some pretty significant discussions still happening in the House. Like they don't even know that they have the votes to pass it to get it over to the Senate.
I mean, they're having those discussions. I haven't heard that yet, but I have heard that they're having lots of discussions. There's a lot of people, a lot of House members out in the hallway having discussions with people from the lobby, with the governor's office. They're really working to see if they can. They're making sure that they have the votes. So I think that's the thing that they're making sure right now.
And the proponents of 108 and 50 kind of have to agree to all of this in order for them to pull those initiatives off the ballot.
Yes, that is correct. That is absolutely correct. So
the legislature could pass a bill, but unless they agree, those initiatives still go forward.
That is correct. Yes.
Boy, it seems like a huge mess.
I mean, the problem is, and Mark, you know how we got here.
Yeah.
So the problem is that sometimes in government, they're not listening to the people. And when Colorado is very unique in the fact that the people have every opportunity to put stuff on the ballot. We saw it with HH. They were the majority was so sure that HH was going to pass. It failed by 61%. And that's the kind of stuff that when the people speak, we should listen to that. And
yeah, well, it seems to be in this circumstance, you're trying to thread a needle here, right? This is like a very difficult circumstance for us all to be in. Nobody, including government officials, want people's property taxes to go up. But at the same time, they still need the dollars to service government, because governments have been impacted just like everybody else, right? Insurance rates in local governments have gone up significantly, so they need more dollars to pay for that. The cost of aggregate to fix your roads has gone up significantly, so they need dollars to pay for that. The cost of labor has gone up significantly, so you need dollars to pay for that. Right. And so local governments need the money to be successful, but at the same time, we don't want to see people's property taxes go up significantly. And so we're trying to find the balance in there somewhere.
And Mark, and some of the stuff that's come out of this building has hurt the people of Colorado as well.
Absolutely.
The people who are paying taxes and paying additional fees and paying more in fuel tax or not fuel tax, but fuel right now. And their insurance has got, homeowners insurance has gone up. The car insurance has gone up. Additional fees have hurt. I mean, I'm hearing from the elderly in my district just about every day about XL Energy adding triple the rate on between 3 and 7 for them to run their air conditioners, and they're at home all day, and that really bothers them that that's increased. And so I'm just saying that we do not want. I mean, if there's a burden that we can take off of them, it should be the taxes, and then everybody can hurt a little bit and share the hurt and be able to figure out a way forward. I will always believe this, and being a former county commissioner just like you, that counties are very flexible in a way that we can make things work. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but we can make things work with the money that we have. And there's gonna be some really hard decisions that counties will have to make. But if we're all hurting, it's not just the citizens who are paying the taxes that are hurting.
Well,
Senator-
thank you for that incredibly valuable
Yeah.
explanation. Kyle, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was just going to thank the senator for coming on short notice and talking through all of this, because it is pretty interesting. And again, we'll have an answer on Thursday. And so, Mark, I know you and I are planning another episode later in the week, a short one, to come back and talk about what was decided. And then again, what are the ramifications of that going forward? So,
Yeah, I'm
Well,
thinking maybe the senator will come back on Friday with us and tell us what happened. Would you be willing to do that, my friend?
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that because I'll be wearing all my farming stuff on, because I won't have to be wearing the suit jacket anymore, and I'll have to actually be on a tractor. So I'll be okay with that. I can do, if we get out of here on Friday. I'm hoping we get out of
Right,
here.
right. Yeah. Well, we'll do it after you get out of here. As long as you're not wearing Navy stuff or Green Bay Packer stuff, we'll be okay.
yeah. So that'd be great if you could come back.
Kyle, do you see what I put up with? Do you see it now?
What are you talking? Kyle deals with me. He understands what a delight I am to hang out with. We do this podcast every week. It's wonderful.
I mean,
you
all
didn't
Mark
see any shock on my face, did you?
Well, Kyle, all I ever hear from him is 85 Bears, and I don't think I was even alive at that time. But yeah, I mean, that's all I hear from him. 85 Bears, 85.
Hey,
So-
God rest Walter Payton,
Yeah.
greatest football player of all time.
Brett Favre, Aaron.
Walter Payton would have single-handedly passed this issue if he had been in the legislature. He would have
Yes.
done this on his own.
2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to hear it.
Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Mason Crosby. Should I just keep going on?
Seriously, you want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, that freaking man bun wearing nut job? Okay, all right. I thought you were a Republican. I guess not.
Oh, shoot. All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. So,
Hey, thanks for
Hey.
coming on.
Co-freshman county commissioner of the year, thank you for participating. We appreciate it.
thank you.
We'll see you. Thanks, my
Thanks.
friend.
So you might be up there a little longer than we thought.
Well, what do you think about all this? Yeah, absolutely. Well, definitely longer than I thought. We thought this would be done on Wednesday, but right now it's looking like Thursday. Well, Thursday at best.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I mean, kind of like you said, there's a lot of moving parts. Again, no matter what they do this week, if the issues stay on the ballot, it might be a moot point, and they'll have to go into next year and decide whether or not they want to mess with it. So yeah, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I'm not convinced anything's actually going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of people in this building that aren't here during this time of year, a lot of hoopla, and ultimately nothing's going to happen. Even if a bill passes, it doesn't matter if 108 and 50 stay on the ballot.
Yeah, true. Very true.
I mean, unless they die, and I'm assuming that they're not going to die if they're on the ballot, which I think everybody is making that same assumption.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're in the know here, though, and we're giving that to our listeners because that's what we do. We have demonstrated time and time and time again that we know how to get that content to you and get you the information you know. So where can people go, Kyle? What can they do?
Subscribe on YouTube. Very important. You can find the podcast on any platform, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would like to support the podcast, we now have a Patreon link or a Patreon account that people can go to support the podcast as well. And actually, I don't have the Patreon link in front of me.
Yeah, I don't even know what a Patreon link is, but we'll, producer Josh is telling us we need to talk about our Patreon link. We'll get that. Maybe we'll put that down in the comments on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to continue to get this great content and help us out, go to that link and send us $1 or $2 to make us help us become successful and proliferate this great information.
That would be great. And next time I'll make sure I have it in front of me too. We can talk about it on the next episode, which will be later this week. So we're going to give you a few more days to to decide what your next rant is going to be about. And so, yeah, so we'll come back later in the week, hear more about how the session ended, and then be able to see I got to imagine after this week, there's going to be a few things that are pissing you off.
Oh, Kyle, the list is endless. We could just do that for nothing but the next year, because I have become that grumpy old man that wants to yell at kids to get off his lawn. But yeah, so the idea this week was we're going to do this episode during the legislative session, get it out there, get it released, so you can see kind of what's going on while it's happening, and then have another short, brief episode after the legislative session is over, so you can understand what happened during the legislative session, and then hear what's pissing me off, because there will be a lot coming out of this. That's for sure.
Okay, sounds good. So again, I'm Kyle Blakely with Mark Waller, and this is We Have Issues, and we will see you again in a few days. Thanks.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.